Ex-Marine Dax Moy here, so we can get the lowdown on what marine training is all about. Dax, thanks for joining me. Can you just tell us first how long you served in the Marines and when that was?
Well, I've been out of military service now for about 11 years, I think, out of full-time military service. But I actually entered the forces when I was 16. Served with various units, so kind of airborne, commando, and other units. So for quite a while, actually. Okay,
good stuff. Right, before we get into the actual fitness side in detail, can you give us an outline of kind of how long the selection process is and what it involves?
Royal Marine recruits currently go through a 34-week training programme. Starting from, basically during that 34 weeks they have to cover everything from obviously reaching tip-top physical shape during training, but also learning weapons, tactics, camouflage, concealment, communications, first aid, everything that a modern combat soldier needs to be able to do once they go into operations. They spend a lot of time on intermingling lectures and lessons every single day for those 34 weeks with physical and mental aspects.
Okay. Right, so if I was going to get on this 34-week training phase, then how fit do I need to be to start with before we even get into the actual training?
Yeah, you've got to be pretty fit. To join the Royal Marines, you've got to pass what's called a PRC, a Potential Recruits course, which is normally a four-day selection process held at the Commando Training Centre in Lympstone in Devon. That involves, as well as a whole bunch of mental tests and kind of aptitude assessments, involves a whole lot of running around with increasingly heavier loads, kind of carrying things like logs, going over assault courses, endurance courses, submerged water tunnels, running through lakes and streams and all that sort of stuff. So it's pretty physical. You've got to be at a fairly decent standard. I think currently they expect you to be able to do 20 full-on chins. And a minimum of 50 push-ups without stopping, and then there's a whole bunch of other tests. That's before you can even go to that selection board.
Okay. Right, so let's say I've got in then. Is there any kind of preparation phase in terms of, we always talk about periodisation and stuff like that. Is there any preparation phase, or is it kind of in at the deep end, off you go?
It always feels like you're in at the deep end and off you go. There is some method in military fitness madness. Ultimately, kind of the early stages of training are mostly gym based. I don't mean kind of bodybuilding gym based. There isn't much weights going on, but yeah, most of it's conducted in a large sports hall where you're doing calisthenics like push-ups and sit-ups and squats and jumps and running around and kind of interspersing body weight exercises along with sprints and shuttles and all that sort of stuff. Then you progressively build up to carrying partners and kind of lifting heavier loads. But again, it's not bodybuilding style training. You'd be literally lifting up guys and kind of running about in fireman's carries. You progress on to rope training. One of the commando tests is that you have to climb a 30-foot vertical rope with full equipment, including rifle and webbing, which is the pouches that you wear around your waist full of bullets and beams and all that sort of stuff. You've got to be able to climb this 30-foot rope at the end of a pretty physical assault course. So, your training. There's a lot of training goes into kind of developing upper body strength. Marines generally tend to have a lot more upper body strength than most other services. The training progresses over the first few months from running in trainers initially, so you'll be out kind of running in proper sports shoes, and then progressively building up to running in boots, and then running in boots with a light load, then running in boots with a heavier load, then running in boots with a heavier load and a rifle, then a heavier load, a rifle and a helmet. So it's always progressing till eventually you can find yourself out on exercise with excess of 80 to 100 pounds on your back, and expected to pass some pretty stringent load carries.
Okay, so it's pretty much a kind of gradual increase in volume rather than, we say about do 4 weeks of 8 reps, 4 weeks of this. It's just increasing steadily.
It's increasing steadily. It never feels it. It always feels like you're always being pushed to your max. And the truth is that whilst the first couple of months, first 2 to 3 months, you're actually getting genuinely fitter than you've ever been in your life. But there comes a point in about the midpoint of training where you're not actually getting fitter anymore. You're just getting tougher.
Right. So a lot of it's on the mental side as well.
Most of military fitness, beyond getting you past a certain base standard, is to make you mentally tough, because it's ultimately training you for war, and they can't beat you up and fire bullets at you every day. So the other way they do that is through physical stress. So you end up becoming increasingly more fatigued. The time period between the very intense physical loads reduces massively. So you might find yourself kind of doing a 10 miler today with with kind of 60 pounds on your back. Tomorrow you might do an 8 miler fast in trainers, and the next day you could be back to a 10 miler with, or 12 miler even with even heavier loads.
So it sounds almost kind of like organised chaos. They know how to progress you, but there's no clear way to do that.
It's definitely not obvious to those who are going through training where the progression is. You're being progressed.
Yeah.
And even in things like the gym, you might start out being asked to do 20s of things. Within a month you're banging out 50 of everything that you're doing, and beyond that you're doing 50 with somebody on your back.
Yeah. Right, and what about rest days then? Do you actually get any rest days? Or?
In the early stages of training, you do get rest days. They don't call them rest days from say today's a physical rest day. But yeah, there are days when there's no organised physical training occurring. On those days, though, it doesn't mean that your corporals and your drill instructors might not have given you the equivalent of 1,000 push-ups that day in various punishments for getting one of your weapon drills. It's very common in the military if you get something wrong. If you're a second too slow in a drill, down, give me 50 push-ups. If you've taken too long to do something else, 50 push-ups. So by the end of the day, you can quite easy. I don't think there was ever a day in training that ever did less than 500 push-ups, and quite often it would have gone much more than that. Right,
now you're sort of widely recognised as being the UK's leading lifestyle and performance coach, and obviously as a Marine, the two methods are probably very different. Is there a right or wrong answer in terms of structuring training for people? Or, do you use the same methods you use in the Marines for your clients? Or
I don't, in terms of the actual program design. It's much gentler than what we kind of did in the Marines, but the principles are the same. I mean, the principle of all exercise, all improvement is the same. It's progression. As long as there's progression, you'll make progress. If there's no progression, then you won't. And it doesn't matter how fun, how varied your workouts are. If there's not some form of progression occurring, if you don't run that little bit faster than last time, or go a little bit further, or lift a little bit heavier, or do a couple more reps, then 6 months down the line you might have had a lot of fun, done lots of different workouts, but you might not have actually achieved progression.
Okay. Right, now I hear a lot of people talking about training like Marines, and you see articles in magazines like Men's Health, yet the program seems to be based largely on dumbbell and barbell training. Did you ever actually use those kind of tools in your training, or was it all outdoor, like say with rifles?
There are periods where you get into the gym, but mostly the gym-based work with any resistance equipment it's in your own time. I mean, if you want to hit the gym and do a bit of weight training, then you can go and do that in the evening when you've gone off duty. It was never really truly structured into saying, okay, here's 3 sets of 10 with bench presses, and now go and do some squats or anything like that. If we did use resistance training in that way, it would always be circuit training, very fast, very furious, and you'd be huffing and puffing in no time. So it's certainly not the way you've seen in a lot of popular magazines that kind of Raw Marines are in there kind of banging out 3 sets of 10 in bicep curls and looking in the mirror for a little while.
Right, glad we got to the bottom of that.